Good morning, everybody, and welcome to you to Penn Vicaries this morning on this Friday. And it's good to see you. I hope you're well and cheerful. And as always, thank you for being with us and joining us for our Bible reflection for today, continuing through the book of Proverbs. And today we are in chapter 9. So without further ado, Proverbs chapter 9, here goes. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She's slaughtered her animals. She's mixed her wine. She's also set her table. She sent out her servant girls. She calls from the highest places in the town. You that are simple, turn here. To those who are without sense, she says, come eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Lay aside immaturity and live, and walk in the way of insight. Whoever corrects a scoffer wins abuse. Whoever rebukes the wicked gets hurt. A scoffer who's rebuked will only hate you. The wise, when rebuked, will love you. Give instruction to the wise, and they'll become wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will gain in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years will be added to your life. If you are wise, you're wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. The foolish woman is loud. She's ignorant and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, on a seat at the high places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. You who are simple, turn in here. And to those without sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But they do not know that the dead are here, and her guests are in the depths of Sheol. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, interesting chapter. This one, it's in basically, essentially, it's in 3 sections, all 6 verses each. So it's verses 1 to 6, verses 7 to 12, and verses 13 to the end. Okay, and essentially, it's showing the difference between wisdom and foolishness. That's again what the chapter. There's a lot of that in the book of Proverbs. The contrast here is laid bare between wisdom and foolishness, and to kind of show this, really, as I say, the first 6 verses are all about to illustrate the wonderful wisdom. He talks about essentially about a wise woman, and in verses 13 to 18 you have a foolish woman. So when Jesus, you get the wise and the wise man builds a house on a rock, and then the foolish man builds a house on the sand, and so on. Here in this chapter, you have verses 1 to 6, you have a wise woman, and verses 13 to the end, 13 to 18, you get a foolish woman. And the verses almost compare verse for verse, okay? So verse 1 is all about a wise person who, about a wise woman, and she gets her house by proper graft and hard work. Verse 13 says, a foolish woman is loud, she's ignorant and knows nothing. So the woman in verse 1, the wise woman, is about hard work and hard graft. The verses 13, basically what it's saying is the foolish woman, she's all talk, essentially. Verse 2, you have here, the wise woman has slaughtered her animals, mixed her wine, and set to her table. And okay, notice that she's worked hard and prepared it a nice feast for those that are coming. Whereas contrast the foolish woman in verse 14, she sits at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the town. So she's basically pretentious. Okay, so it almost compares verse to verse. So 1 is with 13, 2 is with 14, 3 is with 15, and so on. Interesting, actually, verse 4 and verse 16 are almost identical. So verse 4 says, you that are simple, turn in here. Whereas verse 16 says, you are simple, turn in here. That's the running of the same thing. And to both, the wise woman and the foolish woman call people to come and join them. Okay. But then, of course, in verse 5, the wise woman says, come eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. So come and enjoy what I've prepared for you. Verse 17, the foolish woman says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. So she's extolling the virtues there, or what she thinks is the good of things that are stolen property, basically, and things that are done secretly and covertly. So again, and of course in verse 6, you have the wise woman calls and says, lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. So the wise woman is promising maturity, she's promising a good way, insight, and she's promising life. Whereas the foolish woman in her verse 18 says, but they do not know that the dead are there, and her guests are in the depths of Sheol, which is an Old Testament place for sort of shadowy death place, which is often translated as hell. So, to show the contrast between wisdom and foolishness, in verses 1 to 6, you have the actions of a wise woman, to illustrate the point, and in verses 13 to 18, you have a foolish woman. And you can almost compare it verse to verse, 1 with verse 13, 2 with verse 14, and so on. And you see the contrast laid bare there. So 1 to 6 is about the actions of a wise woman. Verses 13 to 18 is all about a foolish woman. As I say, sit there at your leisure later today and compare it verse to verse, and you'll see what I mean. That's the bread in the sandwich. The meat, or the filling of the sandwich, is verse 12 to 7. Verse 7 to 12, I should say. Verse 7 to 12 is all about, again, shows the contrast, but it's all kind of in there. This kind of the filling in the sandwich, if you like. And what essentially it's saying at the beginning is, verses 7 and 8, it's verse 7, 8, 9, essentially saying a wise person is a person who accepts correction. A foolish person is somebody who doesn't. So what they're saying is, if you instruct the wise, a wise person, because they are wise, will listen to instruction, will be teachable, will be advisable, will be able to see that when they get it wrong, sometimes they get it wrong, will be able to accept correction, and therefore will improve their game, if you like. A foolish person, it says, whoever corrects a scoffer wins abuse. Whoever rebukes the wicked gets hurt. A scoffer whose rebuke will only hate you. So unteachable people, people who think they know it all, will either be abusive, they'll be scoff, or they'll hate their teachers. So one major difference between a wise person and a foolish person is that a wise person accepts correction, whereas a foolish person does not. Then, of course, in verse 10, you have the key to the whole thing, which I think it's the verse which sums up the entire book of Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. It's tempting to read the book of Proverbs sometimes and think this is almost forever. This could almost be a humanist book in a way. It's all about wise and foolish living, and you could and everybody here it's quite clear. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and it doesn't mean that it's chronologically. It means kind of the way on which it's all based. So if you fear God, you will receive wisdom. And fear here, as I've always said, does not mean terror of God. I mean that's terror. I mean, God says more than anything, do not be afraid. The fear of the Lord means to respect God. It means to put God in his proper place. It means to remember that he is God and we are mortals. And the fear of the Lord is to hold God in awe and hold God in honor and to put God in God's rightful place. That is what's meant by the fear of the Lord. And that is the beginning of wisdom. To put God in his rightful place is to put the world in its rightful place and to put yourself in your rightful place as well. And that is the source. And if anybody who wants true wisdom, that has to be the start of it. That's the basis on which everything is built. So here in verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Then he goes on to say the benefits of it in verses 11 and 12. What are the benefits of being wise? Your days will be numbered and years will be added to your life. If you live wisely, you're much more likely to live well. You are living life according to the Maker's instructions, and therefore you're much more likely to live well. And also, it says it's not just for the benefit of society. It's not just about saying doing your duty. Being wise is actually good for yourself. It says, be wise, and you're wise for yourself. It's not just this isn't just saying be wise because it's good for everybody else. Be wise because it's your duty and all that sort of stuff. That's just saying if you're wise for yourself. It'll do you good too. And if you scoff, beg your pardon, and if you scoff, you alone will bear it as well. So if you're foolish. If you act foolishly, you're the person that's going to get hurt the most. So again, another fascinating chapter. Verses 1 to 6 and verses 13 to 18. One is about the actions of a wise woman. The other is about a foolish woman, to make the contrast between wisdom and foolishness. And you can compare it, verse 1 with verse 13, and compare the verses later, because it's almost a direct comparison. Check them yourself. Then in verses 7 to 12, there's what you might think of as the filling in the sandwich. You have a wise person is someone who accepts correction, someone who accepts teaching. And the wiser you get, the wiser you'll become. that the basis on which all wisdom is based is the fear of the Lord. To put God in his rightful place is the origin, if you like, of real wisdom. And if you get wisdom, it's good for you as well as everybody else. And there are benefits of happiness and long life, and it's good. So it's the best way to be. And it's God's way, so it's the best way. Friends, I hope you've enjoyed that. You found that helpful. Verse 10 on Monday. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Don't forget, we have some great services at St. Bart's Stands over the weekend, and we'd love to see you. Be very, very welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this tech reflection. Do please share the message with your friends so other people can enjoy them too. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy the week.